pattern we're going to be working on today is something I've been messing around with. We're going to call it the Alyssa's Purple Sunrise. Alyssa's my daughter, and she is amazing. She likes purple. So I wanted to do a purple fly. And that's what we're working on today. So I've got a size 14 dry hook here in my vise. Obviously using purple nano silk thread here. I'm going to start out with a Mallard Flank that has been dyed purple. This is going to form a wing. So I'm going to just kind of stroke those fibers forward. And tie those in about the length that I want that wing to be on the top. Just go ahead and take a wrap down at least one to see if we've got it about as long as we want. I want it to be decently long, but I don't need it to be incredibly overly long. So I'm going to go ahead and make an adjustment here just by pulling back here a little bit. And it really only takes small adjustments to get where you want to be. And that's going to be good. With that, I'm going to tighten down my thread moving backwards. I'm going to grab my scissors and I'm going to want to cut this on a bit of an angle. So I'm just going to kind of hold that feather backwards while I cut kind of horizontal with the hook. And you'll see that cut leaves us a butt end here that is a little bit tapered. So it's going to have a dubbing body and a Coq de Leon tail when we're done with it. But this is our first step, and actually for me probably the hardest of the steps. Once we're here, we'll just go ahead and pull those fibers backwards, and I'm going to just take a handful of jam wraps right underneath the base of that feather, the fibers of this feather, and that'll just help this stand up a little bit. It's going to look like it's got a crazy hairdo here for a moment. So from here, we're just going to work on trying to separate the fibers just about in half, as close as you can kind of gauge that. I'm going to take a wrap right up through the middle of the fibers there on that side. I'm going to kind of try to pull those ones forward while I grab the other bunch. We'll take a wrap or two right through the middle there as well. And again, all we're doing is it's going to create that defined separation between these two clumps. And it does look a little bit messy at this point, but we're going to do some post wraps on these, and that's going to help. So from here, we're just going to post it up, taking a wrap behind those divided fibers now. And I'm going to grab hold of that chunk on the lens side of the hook here. I'm going to just take a couple of wraps. Right around the base of those. Not around the hook, but around the base of those fibers. I'm sure my fingers are once again in the way. And once I've got that kind of where I want it to be, we'll go ahead and take a couple of wraps around the hook now, so that hopefully you can see that it's created that nice little bunching that we're looking for. So now we're going to do the same thing on the fibers on my side of the hook. We're going to just take a wrap or two around the base of that clump of feathers. What it's going to do is this is just going to give us a really nice defined separated wing. We'll be tying a hackle up through this towards the end of the pattern. But I am being very ginger. Go ahead and pull that through. And with that, I'm going to try to get myself right back on the shank of the hook with a couple of thread wraps. So we end up with a nice set of purple wings. Now that we've got our wings kind of situated, I'm going to go ahead and start moving my thread backwards. I'm not wanting to take too many more wraps up there by the wings because I do want to taper and I don't want that to get overly thick. But once I get back here, the next material we'll tie in is going to be some Coq de Leon, and I've just got a purple colored that's going to be used for our tail. Once I've got a nice little clump of those, I pull them straight away from the shaft of the feather. I'm going to pinch them to keep those lined up, and then I just will strip them straight off of the feather, and then we should be left with a nice tail that the ends are very close to being lined up the way we want them. I want this tail to be about the length of the body. I don't mind if it's a little bit long. I don't want it short. So we're going to take a wrap here to start securing this down on the hook. And I'm going to take a look at the length here and see if I'm okay with the length that I've got. And that looks pretty good. I may shorten it just a hair. After that, we'll just go ahead. I'll keep those fibers on the top of the shank of the hook as I move my way back to where the bend of the hook starts. Right about in there. And then I'm going to take one wrap underneath of those fibers, pulling the thread tight and forward now, going back around the hook. And what that's going to do is just going to help those fibers spread out a little bit and stand up a little bit. From here I can go ahead and cut off the excess. And then I'm just going to come back forward, tighten those butt ends down a little bit. We'll take a look at our taper. Our taper's looking pretty good, but we'll just move our thread back down towards the back where we're going to start dubbing the abdomen. For the abdomen, I'm just going to use some caddis purple dubbing here. Got a little wispy bit of it out. We'll get our fingers a little bit wet so we can finger dub this on. Give myself a little bit of extra thread. I want to dub this on pretty tight. And once you've got that about where you want it, I can start sliding that down a little bit towards the base. We want to get that first couple of wraps right around the base of the tail. I'll reach in, as I always do, and tighten that dubbing up a little bit as I go. But we want a tapered but pretty streamlined body. This particular dubbing material has some spikiness to it, so I will come back through after I get up here behind the wing, and we'll end up cutting some of that spikiness off. So from here we're going to tie in a piece of hackle, and I want this hackle to be cream colored, not quite white, but just about white. We're going to get that standing itself up perpendicular by taking a wrap around over the top of it, and then a couple of wraps behind it like that. And with those wraps in place, I'm going to now start proceeding up towards the eye of the hook here with my thread, and it'll coax that stem along with it. Once I get a few good wraps in there like that, I'm going to go ahead and come in with my scissors, and we'll just cut off the balance of that stem. From here we're going to turn right back to that purple dubbing. I'm going to dub that on nice and tight, just like we did before. And I probably have way too much, just like I did before. I'm going to pull that hackle feather back just a little bit and get a couple of wraps over the top of it. We're going to work on creating a little bit of a pronounced thorax, but I want to keep my thread nice and tight here because I'm going to take some wraps right up through the middle of those two wings and then back through the other side of those two wings and then around again. And then what that's going to do is help us cover up the stem and some of those thread wraps. From there, I can go ahead and manhandle those wings just a little bit. I'm going to pull my dubbing nice and tight. We'll just take a couple of turns up here right behind the eye of the hook. And try not to take your wing with you as you go, like I just did. That's going to be enough dubbing for me. So I've got my thread in the bobbin cradle. I'm going to go ahead and get this hackle in my hackle pliers. Hold that nice and straight up. I can push these wings a little bit forward so we can tie right up against them, and then I'll kind of stroke them a little bit back. We can rearrange those Mallard Flank wings. So we're just going to want to take some touching turns with our hackle here up, right up to behind those two wings. One more. And now I'm going to keep that tension on that hackle while I kind of pull those wings back a little bit so I can just make sure I get one or two nice wraps in front of those wings as well. Once we've gotten there, we'll go ahead and release our bobbin from the bobbin cradle if we can. We'll move our bobbin cradle out of the way, keep our tension on our hackle here, or it'll just come right unwound on us, which is not what we want to have happen. I'm just going to go ahead and take a wrap over the top of the stem, get that locked into place. And there are a few escapees, but we will pluck those out with some tweezers. From here, I should be safe to release from my hackle pliers. So at this point, we'll go ahead and cut that hackle off as close as we can. Kind of brush everything back and into place, get my wings back where I kind of want them to be. And I'm just going to use a half hitch tool here actually to finish the head up on this. So it's just this. I'm going to wrap my thread around here and slide it right up over the eye of the hook. And I'm just going to take 3 or 4 of those wraps. We don't need a really pronounced head here. With that, I'll just go ahead and turn the fly just a little bit, grab my thread cutter so we can get a nice clean cut on the thread. With that, there you have it. Alyssa's Purple Sunrise. Just invented it, haven't fished it. I am going to give it a shot. I do think it's going to work though. Kind of looks like the purple haze a little bit, but it's not parachute style, and it's completely different. But other than that, it's pretty much like a purple haze. If you want to give it a shot, throw a hook in your vise and get busy.